What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. This is the WWE NXT TakeOver Toronto post-show, where I'm going to be recapping my thoughts on the event, telling you guys what happened, and giving my opinions about whatever it is I feel like talking about. So, if you don't know who I am your host as always, Tony Mango, and we're going to start things off with the pre-show, actually, because normally we don't have much to say about a pre-show for NXT because they only have it for about a half an hour, and it's not the same as the WWE ones, where the WWE ones usually have some kind of matches or maybe some weird announcements or something like that, although tomorrow with Survivor Series, that might not be the case. They seem like they're going to have 2 hours of nothing, but for this one, they changed things up just a little bit. They did their usual review of all the matches that were coming up and stuff like that, but they changed a different member of the panel. Lately, it's been Lita. Corey Graves was in it for a while, and he sort of stopped doing that because he's been doing his own thing, and he can't do too much. Mauro Ranallo's been picking up a lot of that stuff, so that's really good. But instead of Renee Young, now they have Charlie Caruso on there, and I think that she actually handled herself really well. I'm actually pretty surprised. Charlie has been a good backstage interviewer, but they haven't tried her out in a whole lot of other roles, and she did a good job here. So if they need to replace Renee Young, to give Renee a little bit of time, because she's doing God knows how many things. She does the Talking Smack. I think that she does Raw Talk. I don't know for sure though, because they've only done like a little bit of those, and Unfiltered and all these other kind of things. Renee Young can't be everywhere, the same as Corey Graves can't be everywhere and all that, and Charlie was a good replacement. I actually think that going forward, if they keep her on the TakeOver pre-show things, that could be a good thing. I'm still not a big fan of Lita on them. She just doesn't seem like she's really good fit for that. And Mauro Ranallo, he's good. Give or take. I mean, if they replaced him with somebody else, I wouldn't be all upset. If they replaced him with David Otunga, then maybe that's a different story. So keep that in mind, just in case it ends up happening in the future. Although, if that is what we need to do to get Otunga off of SmackDown's commentary, maybe I'm okay with that, because that needs to happen no matter what. So somewhere, you can throw him in the mix. Still don't know why he doesn't wrestle anymore, but that's another topic for another day. We're talking about NXT TakeOver here, so I'm not going to get bogged down on SmackDown or the old NXT stuff or the old Nexus stuff or any of that kind of crap that he used to be involved with. But let's talk about the first match of the night, which was Bobby Roode against Ty Dillinger. This was my favorite match of the night. I thought that the entrance was amazing, that they had the choir coming out to sing Glorious, which was just another step up from what they did before. So that means 2 for 2. Bobby Roode has had some of the best entrances in this entire year, which is amazing. So keep that in mind for your 2016 End of the Year awards, because that might end up being something that takes a lot of the cake. Oh man, I want some cake now. Ty Dillinger getting a huge good response from the crowd, as does Bobby Roode. They're both Canadians, so they both have that hometown kind of a feel. But I would have thought Roode would have gotten more of a response from a lot of the different people, and they would have kind of bogged Dillinger down. So I'm surprised that didn't happen, and I'm glad that it didn't too, because Dillinger deserves much more credit than he ever gets. So to see this lively crowd come out there, support both the guys, have fun with it. The match was fantastic on top of that too, so that was a lot easier to kind of enjoy instead of getting to a point where maybe you're not cheering for anything anymore because it's just the fact that they're Canadians that are holding you together. But loved the energy of the crowd. Love that Dillinger did get some time to shine. He put on a great match. Like I had said, it was a good back and forth. And at the end, even though Bobby Roode won, Dillinger came out of this looking like a more legitimate superstar than he's been in a long, long time. He actually got a little bit of a send-off at the end of the match, and that started to make me wonder if he's going to be called up soon. I wouldn't have thought that that would have been the case. I mean, I didn't think that it would be before this, and I don't necessarily think that it is now, but they don't usually do that unless it's something a little bit special, and I don't think that he's retiring. I don't think that he's injured or anything like that. So maybe he's getting called up. Maybe this was just a matter of them going, hey, you know what? Take a bow. You haven't had a bow yet. So keep your eyes on that. I don't know if something's going to happen with that, but we had some weird twists tonight that I did not see coming at all. So I would not be surprised if there's some weird changes going forth, because my whole perception of what NXT was going to be doing and what some of the different things that are involved with the main roster going forward has completely been shattered. They've taken that in a completely different direction, so I don't have a clue what's happening with that. And I'm going to get to that by just talking about a couple of different changes that we had here. And one of those is, of course, that total flip from what I thought was going to happen, which was that TM61 would win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic tournament, and that would be their means to sort of propel them towards an NXT title shot for the Tag Team Championships. I mean, and we didn't get that. We actually got the Authors of Pain winning. Now, I'm going to go back and talk about a little bit of the match itself, but I want to kind of tie this into the other match, which was DIY defeating the Revival to win the NXT Tag Team Championships, because I thought TM61 wins, the Revival retains, DIY goes up to the main roster for 205 Live, because that's starting next week, and they were supposed to be part of that Cruiserweight division, so I thought you can't really have them in the Cruiserweight division if they're the Tag Team Champions on NXT, unless you make them do double duty, and then things get a little bit kind of crazy then, because what rosters do they do live tours with and different things like that. So that I thought was going to be too confusing, and they would just keep the belts on the Revival. If you keep the belts on the Revival, you need a team of babyfaces to come in and challenge them. TM61, of course, being the next step up. So I thought that them beating the Authors of Pain would be that thing that would people go, oh man, they beat Sanity, they beat Authors of Pain, they won the tournament, those guys are legit. Nope. Authors of Pain win this match. Paul Ellering in the cage on top of the thing was a weird call, and I kind of don't understand why they did that, because he didn't make it a frequent thing to interfere in his matches, but now I'm starting to draw some conclusions that maybe it was just for that Crash Cage Mattel thing that's going on right now, so maybe they were just like, why don't you do a cage thing? And they were like, I don't know, why don't we put fucking Paul up there? So that actually came into play where very early on in the match, Shane Thorne jumped off the little vertical structure that was holding the cage up, which was really cool. And I thought that the TM61 team, Nick Miller and Shane Thorne, this was the best that they've appeared since being part of WWE, period. Never been a big fan of them. Never thought they really had that much personality. Didn't really think that they were really that good in the ring either. Like, they were just fine. Like, typical indie guys, kind of just generic Ring of Honor dudes. Nothing bad, of course, but nothing that stood out, nothing that was really that entertaining. And they did a damn good job tonight. That Thunder Valley move, that's a great tag maneuver. So I'm going to be paying a little bit more attention to TM61. And the cage chain that fell off, that was pretty interesting, but it didn't come into play all that much. So that was another weird call. Very surprised about that ending, as I said. And it was also awkward to only have Triple H, William Regal, and Goldust come out. And it was like a split second. They came out to congratulate them for winning the tournament, but it just felt off. I mean, we had Cody, we had Brandy, and we had a couple other members of the Rhodes family last year. Of course, we don't have Cody and Brandy anymore because they are out of the company. They're wrestling all over the place and all that. And then the other people, I guess they just figured, screw it. It doesn't really matter to bring them in. But having Goldust there and Regal and Triple H just kind of like, hey, congrats, guys. Here's a couple handshakes. Let's go. That was really weird. I don't know why that felt so rushed and awkward. But in the future, if they're going to keep doing this, maybe you don't need to have those people come out to congratulate them. I don't know. Just something to think about. So once that happened, and I was totally wrong with the Authors of Pain winning, I thought, uh-oh, now DIY might actually win. And I wasn't digging the match at first. I hoped that it was going to be a lot better, and the first two falls were kind of struggling a little bit. I thought that it picked up the pace after the second fall, and from that point on, it was great. But it was probably my least favorite match of the night for the first section of that. Of course, once it picked up the pace and everything like that, then it ended up becoming really good. And if they would have been that the entire time, probably would have been my second favorite match of the night. But the ending series, that was a good little twist here, because there was a couple different parts where I thought that it was going to happen, then it wasn't going to happen, then I thought that it was a guarantee, then it was a guarantee that it wouldn't. So whenever they can play that up a little bit and make you think about it, that's always a good thing, because it makes either way a shock, instead of just giving a championship to somebody that you didn't expect being the only surprise. Sometimes giving the championship when you thought that they were going to give the championship even could be a surprise. So I thought that was interesting. Instead of going from the Revival to TM61 to Authors of Pain, I'm now assuming that we're going to go from Revival to DIY to Authors of Pain, and then they will lose it to TM61, as that's going to be their redemption for never being able to beat them after all these series that they've had together, because the Authors of Pain are undefeated, which that's something that you should pay a little bit of attention to as well, because undefeated people are having these streaks in NXT. You got Authors of Pain, you got Asuka, you kind of had Shinsuke for a little bit there, but not anymore. And that has to come to a head at some point. You can't stay undefeated forever. So the Authors of Pain should be winning those tag titles at some point. They're definitely not ready to come up to the main roster. And them beating DIY would make a lot more sense than TM61 beating DIY. Although Sanity could sneak their way in there. And that is something that I'm not really putting a whole lot of faith in. I think that Sanity losing a little bit since their debut means that they're not sold on them yet. And I actually like Authors of Pain more. And I think that they kind of built up themselves a little bit more to deserve it. So I hope that it's Authors of Pain. When they win the titles, that's going to be a little bit interesting, because if they win them, I don't know, say, you know what, they could actually even win them next week. I mean, we've got a couple matches that were taped where No Way Jose was doing something with Sanity, so you would assume that Sanity's not going to get the next title shot from DIY. Then we had that Liv Morgan and the 5 other women match. So that's going to be next week on NXT. That's recaps and those two things. But maybe the week after that, we get some kind of Authors of Pain challenge for the championship and they beat DIY. It could be a real quick title reign. So that might happen too. I don't know. But I do think down the line at some point, Authors of Pain are winning those belts. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, I got the tag tournament finals wrong. I got the championship for the tag championships wrong. Holy shit, is Asuka going to lose to Mickie James? I thought it was a possibility even at that point, although I still kind of stuck to my guns and thought Mickie would end up losing, although putting on a good show, and that's what happened here. Mickie James looked great. Always had a thing for her. Always thought that she was, if she's not my top favorite of all time, then she's at least in my top 3 for women's wrestlers, because she was always fantastic. I think even underrated in a lot of different ways. I think they said that she won the championship 6 times, which she maybe should have even won another 1 or 2. But she was great. Didn't look like she missed a step at all. Good psychology in this match with the ring ropes, the come back into the ring, and then Asuka's going to kind of do something a little bit shady. And then when Asuka does that, she ends up fucking Nikki over a little bit. And I wanted Asuka to turn heel here. And we didn't get a full-on heel turn, but we did get more of a solidification for that, because now, at the end of this match, Mickie James, unsuccessful. She taps out, although puts on a great fight, like I said. She does the standard thing where she puts her hand out, you want to shake my hand, good job, congrats, respect, that kind of a thing. And Asuka holds up her belt and then leaves. So Asuka is playing with that heel character. They don't seem like they want to turn her heel 100%, but this just solidifies that even more, that I think that in the future, at the very least with the Women's Championship, I think I'm still on the same path here. Asuka is going to lose that to Ember Moon, and they're setting both of those up. Nobody yet, out of anybody else, seems to get any kind of credibility, but Ember Moon is being protected, so look for Orlando, Ember Moon versus Asuka. I think we're going to see a title change there. Then again, I thought that the same thing would apply to the NXT Championship match, but we'll get to that in a second, because the one other thing that I want to mention is that Mickie put on a good enough performance here that I think that this is going to go a long way for her. I think that this could lead to her not coming back to the main roster, although she did say that she would be interested. I think that she's going to end up being another performance center coach. I don't know if she would be willing to move or where she lives now in comparison to Florida or whatever like that, but if all those things line up, Mickie James is one of those people that has a lot of knowledge. She's got a lot of experience. She had her problems with the company, but everybody's got at least some problems, and it wasn't stuff that was so bad that she'll never be welcomed back, because she was just welcomed back for this too. So I think that, a little bit of time's going by, all those bad feelings are now water under the bridge and everything like that. So I think that Mickie James, within the next year or so, I'm hoping at the very least, we'll hear that she's either coming on board as like a temporary coach, like a polisher type of person, like Shawn Michaels is doing, or maybe she'll end up being another coach along with Sarah Amato and what's her name? Sarah Stock. And it was another Sarah. It was throwing me off a little bit because she was Sarita, so it's like Sarita, Sarah, then whatever. Brain fart. But going back to what I mentioned before about thinking that the NXT Women's Championship would change hands in Orlando, I thought that was also going to be a guarantee for the NXT Men's Championship, because Shinsuke Nakamura just won that title from Samoa Joe, and they don't usually go back and forth between champions all that much. It's usually you win it from somebody, they defend it 2 or 3 times to completely different people, and then somebody else new comes along, and then they beat them, and then we kind of go around it in circles and stuff. But Nakamura lost here, and I am super shocked about that, even more than I am about the DIY situation. I thought it was set in stone that we would end up getting Bobby Roode beating Shinsuke Nakamura in Orlando, or maybe a little bit before that, maybe a Royal Rumble one if they were going to do a takeover for that, although they haven't announced it yet, so I'm assuming no. But he seemed like he was being groomed for that position. And Samoa Joe, I thought, was going to be moving up to the main roster. I thought either he would make his debut during the Royal Rumble, or maybe just a little bit afterwards, somewhere along the line of the road to WrestleMania. At the very least, I thought Samoa Joe would be popping up like the night after WrestleMania, because he's got to come up to the main roster at some point, and I thought that he would be a mainstay for SmackDown. Maybe Raw, I don't know, but I thought maybe more SmackDown than anything else, to start a feud with somebody like Dean Ambrose or John Cena. Probably John Cena more than anybody else. But man, they surprised me here. Samoa Joe wins the title back, and now I have no idea where they're going in the future, which is a good thing in a way, because now I'm not going to be looking at that as like, well, I know this is going to happen, and then A, B, C, D, that kind of thing. Now it's all up in the air, but same token, I'm a little bit worried that maybe they don't know exactly what they're doing, because I'm looking at the roster, and they don't have anybody who could end up winning that championship back from Samoa Joe other than Shinsuke Nakamura. If you look at who they have, Akam, no, he's the tag team one. We're going to get that whole tag team championship. Alexander Wolf, he's insanity. He's not anywhere near close to ready for that kind of stuff. Andrade Cien Almas just turned heel, so they're not going to push him to that level, because he would be somebody who would be more likely to feud with Nakamura in the meantime than anything else. Angelo Dawkins is a jobber who barely ever shows up. Austin Aries is a heel who isn't going to wrestle until 2017, maybe a little bit later than that even. Bobby Roode is a complete heel. Buddy Murphy, he's a jobber. Dash Wilder, tag team division. Elias Sampson, he's a heel. Eric Young, he's a heel. Hideo Itami, we don't know when he's going to come back, and he's always injured, so I wouldn't put a lot of faith in them giving him the championship. Johnny Gargano, NXT Tag Team Champion. Nick Miller, Tag Team. No Way Jose, I mean, I can't imagine No Way Jose getting that spot, can you? Oney Lorcan, come on, give me a break. Razor, again, Authors of Pain. Roderick Strong, he's a heel. Maybe they want to turn a babyface, I don't really know, but I wouldn't think that they would give him that much of a position that soon after signing him. Sawyer Fulton, not a chance. Scott Dawson, tag team again, same thing with Shane Thorne. Tommaso Ciampa again. And Ty Dillinger is a guy who I really, really like a whole lot, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to give him that spot either. And then there's Wesley Blake, and fuck Wesley Blake, he's not going to get that. So you only have Shinsuke Nakamura, and I would think, why would they do Samoa Joe loses to Nakamura, who loses to Joe, who loses to Nakamura, who loses to Roode? That would seem like they'd be playing hot potato a little bit too much, so I don't think that that's going to happen. Of course, now people are thinking maybe Nakamura gets called up to the main roster instead of Joe. I don't know about that. I still think Joe is a better choice to go up to the main roster. So I'm really curious to see if any new people get brought on board. Maybe Dan Matha. Was it Matha or Matha? I think it was Matha. Maybe they really, really want to push him. Maybe they really want to push Josh from Tough Enough. You think he's going by Bronson Matthews still? But really, there's nobody who is in a good enough position right now that could win that NXT championship, especially around WrestleMania time, other than Nakamura. So now it's making me really question where they're going with this, because do they just put this on hold and they drag it out another few months, or what? Very, very curious. I don't know what's happening there. So that completely took me by surprise. As far as the match itself goes, I didn't think it was as good as their previous match, and the same thing with Nakamura's entrance. I know some people are going to like that with the violinist, but I think the last one was better. And if they do have another match, I would rather see it happen sooner than later. I don't want to have this build up for another 4 or 5 months or so, because I think that Orlando is the beginning of April again. So I don't want to see the rest of November, all of December, January, February, March, 5 months, basically 4.5 months worth of building up to that, because we've already seen it for the past couple months. So I don't know what they're going to do here, but I'm curious because it's totally the off-kilter road from what I was expecting. I mean, they already threw everything off when they said that The Undertaker was going to returning to a more regular basis, because I didn't think that that would happen. So that already had me on like a little bit of a sidewinding path, but this is really a deviation from what I expected. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a little pessimistically concerned, but NXT for the most part, even though this was a show that I think wasn't really all that great, it wasn't bad. I don't want to come off saying like that. It was just not one of their better takeover events. I think that it's still a rock solid show. I mean, it was entertaining from top to bottom. We had some down moments, but they pretty much kept the energy up. They pretty much had some changes, so that was interesting. And the best part of the night was the beginning of it, so that's usually a little bit hard to sort of go from top to bottom, sort of. But hey, at the very least, we'll look at it this way. We've got Authors of Pain continuing a reign of dominance. We got new tag team champions, which is a shock. We got a new NXT champion, which is a shock. Asuka and Mickie James putting on a hell of a show. That could lead to Mickie James coming back into the fold, which is another great thing. Asuka doing a transition to get a little bit more of a heel character, which is just a huge benefit for her. And then we got Bobby Roode and Ty Dillinger stealing the show. So overall, I got to give it a thumbs up. It's not as enthusiastic of a thumbs up as most of the other TakeOver events have been, but I still think that it's a good one in the long run. So I want to know what you guys have to say about this, so leave your comments below on YouTube. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, leave your comments either on the YouTube thing itself or on the website, on the post that we're going to have up for this. So let me know what you got to say, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't already, as well as that thumbs up button to like this video and help us with the SEO. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and keep paying attention to smarkoutmoment.com, because tomorrow night Survivor Series is happening. Pre-show starts at 5 p.m. Eastern. 2 hours of, I'm assuming, nothing, but at 7 o'clock the show itself is going to start, and then after we do all the results and stuff for that, then we got another post-show coming up afterward for that. So that's the next thing you guys can be looking forward to. Next week, as far as Smack Talk goes, we got the hot tags, which I'm probably going to include some different things for the end of the year to let you guys know about, especially if there's not many other topics to talk about, which been a little bit of a slow news week so far, so I don't know. We got the Ask Him coming up after that. The mailbag is going to be coming up next week as well, so start sending in those questions as soon as you possibly can, and I will backlog them and all that other kind of stuff. I think we're going to probably do a Sporkle quiz too about TLC, so I'm going to have to look into those a little bit, but that's all coming up over the next few days. So I just want to thank you all for listening to this again, and for all your continued support. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.